Ferrari on form and Mercedes in the mix. 5 storylines we're excited about ahead of the French Grand Prix. The first part of the 2022 season will end with a double-header that begins with a trip to the south of France, so here are some of the topics that have got us excited ahead of the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. 1. Ferrari building some momentum. Red Bull's run of 6 straight victories had led some to claim the fight for both championships was already over even before we had reached the halfway stage of the season. But that view discounted Ferrari, and overlooked the threat they had posed at most of those 6 races. It's true that Ferrari hadn't managed to take their chances in that time, but that changed over the past 2 race weekends as Carlos Sainz won at Silverstone and Charles Leclerc took an oath. The 2 teams have been closely matched for much of the season so far, and there's no obvious reason to expect the situation to be any different heading to France, where Ferrari struggled with tire wear a year ago but learned valuable lessons that helped them improve. Leclerc is now up to second in the Drivers' Championship and has closed the gap to Max Verstappen by 11 points to 38 over the past 2 races. While you'd still rather be the championship leader, if Leclerc can claw back some more points this weekend, then the pressure might start to build a little on the defending champion. 2. Mercedes likely to be strong again. I'm sure you don't need reminding, but at Silverstone we had an absolutely epic race as Mercedes managed to provide a threat to the top 2 teams, while Lewis Hamilton looked to be in the mix for victory. Ultimately Hamilton had to settle for 3rd place, but the British driver's move on both Leclerc and Sergio Perez at the final corner as the 3 scrapped it out in front of a partisan home crowd will live long in the memory. Fortunately, we don't have to wait long for the chance to potentially see something similar, as Paul Ricard is a track that has some similarities to Silverstone, with high-speed cornering and a smooth track surface that should play into Mercedes' hands a little more than Austria did. The top 2 teams will be worried, because Mercedes being in the mix and potentially taking points off them adds an unpredictability to the title fight. There's a chance that Hamilton or George Russell could take points off one of Red Bull or Ferrari, benefiting the other team and either closing up the standings or opening up gaps even wider. Victory in Austria to remind Red Bull that the Scuderia haven't gone anywhere. 3. French backing for Alpine. A very strong double points finish for Alpine in Austria resulted in the team drawing level with McLaren in the battle for 4th in the Constructors' Championship, with McLaren holding the advantage courtesy of Lando Norris's podium in Imola. But it feels like the momentum is with the French team, and heading to their home race, they'll be looking to move clear of McLaren into 4th. The result in Austria was led by Esteban Ocon's excellent 5th place, which continued his very strong season so far, but it was backed up by 10th place from the back of the grid from Fernando Alonso. And it was Alonso who helped ensure Alpine picked up more points than McLaren at Silverstone a week earlier, pipping Norris to 5th on that occasion on a track that is comparable to Paul Ricard. The proud French support will be backing their team at Le Castellet, and the performances of both Ocon and Alonso so far this season provide plenty of reasons for optimism heading into Alpine's home race. 4. Schumacher hitting his stride. Momentum seems to be the buzzword of the feature this week, and another driver who has plenty of that is Mick Schumacher. The young German has really found form in recent weeks, and while he had to wait 31 Grands Prix for his first points to finally arrive, courtesy of an 8th place at Silverstone that also included a thrilling fight with Verstappen, he backed that up in spectacular style in Austria. A first top 6 finish for Schumacher at the Red Bull Ring also formed part of a consecutive 2021 Haas double point score, moving the team back up to 7th place in the Constructors' Championship, having been down in 9th prior to the British Grand Prix. And rather than a pair of lucky results, they feel like just reward for the potential Haas have shown so far this season. And don't forget, Paul Ricard was the scene of Schumacher's first Q2 appearance last year. He crashed in Q1 when inside the top 15 and the subsequent red flags saw him advance but unable to take part, but it was a more competitive showing despite the relative lack of pace of the 2021 Haas, so there's every chance of the run continuing for a 2020 Formula 2 champion who is clearly growing in confidence. 5. Drivers' silly season developments. In the time between the Formula 1 paddock packing up to leave Austria and getting set up in France, there has been a lot going on at McLaren. IndyCar star Colton Herta tested a 2021 car for the team at Portimao last week, and then just after that test finished, they announced the signing of defending IndyCar champion Alex Palou to their wider racing program. While there are contractual issues still to sort with Palou and no clarity over where he will race, the announcement did state he would also test a 2021 car at some point, all of which only serves to increase speculation over Daniel Ricciardo's future. Ricciardo has come out and stated he is going nowhere, as he has a watertight contract until the end of 2023. But it's no secret both he and the team are not satisfied with the way this season has. The 2022 F1 season now moves into the second half of the campaign, with round 12 of 22 being the French Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc reignited his title hopes with victory last time out in Austria, but Max Verstappen remains at the top of the World Championship standings. Who will have the edge when F1 returns to the circuit? Paul Ricard. The weekend will follow the usual format, with two 60-minute practice sessions taking place on Friday. FP1 is scheduled for 1300 hours UK time, with FP2 following at 1600 hours. On Saturday, FP3 will be held at 12 o'clock UK time, ahead of qualifying at 1500 hours. This will determine the grid for Sunday's 53-lap French Grand Prix, which starts at 1400 hours. Alongside, one of the most important factors ahead of any Formula One Grand Prix weekend is of course represented by the weather conditions, which can have a great impact on the outcome. From the Formula One team's point of view, different weather conditions can result in very different races, and Formula One teams are always focused on this aspect in order to evaluate and choose their strategy options accordingly, for example using different tires in wet conditions, and taking account of crosswinds which can cause stability problems at high speeds. This means that we should always keep an eye out on the weather before any Formula One Grand Prix weekend, given the fact that it can often throw a curveball into the mix. However, this time Le Castellet seems to be a straightforward weekend, at least for Saturday and Sunday, when the main events take place. Conditions appear perfect ahead of the 2022 French Grand Prix weekend. Sunny, warm and pleasant conditions are expected for Sunday's French Grand Prix, while the rather high temperatures, about 32 to 34 degrees for the entire race weekend, and new Pirelli tires may not be the ideal conditions for Scuderia Ferrari, especially on the power unit front, as the Maranello team will attempt to avoid overheating problems that have led to reliability concerns in the first part of the season. The qualifying session on Saturday and the practice sessions on Friday should also take place in dry conditions, without the threat of any rain. For final practice and qualifying, Saturday is a near identical day to Friday, with not a cloud in the sky and temperatures again reaching 33 to 34 Celsius. Wind speeds will again reach 9 miles per hour in a southwesterly direction, and with gusts in the mid-20s. We go up a degree for the race start at 3 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. UK, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on Sunday afternoon at the Paul Ricard circuit, as the green lights will go out under cloudless skies and with the thermometer hitting 35 Celsius. Circuit Paul Ricard, opened in 1970, is no stranger to Formula One. But until 2018, it had not been used as a Grand Prix venue since Alain Prost's victory back in 1990. The revamped circuit has FIA Grade 1 listing, but in order to achieve that it had to comply with the rules, meaning Formula One cars race on the 5.8 km version of the track that features a chicane on the north side of the Mistral Strait. Circuit Paul Ricard is located in the small commune of Le Castellet in southeast France. The population is just under 4,000 and the village is surrounded by vineyards. Don't miss out the race. Located approximately 40 kilometers east of Marseilles, the best way to get to Paul Ricard is by private jet. But for those of us who don't have such luxuries, many big airlines fly into Marseille province, approximately 65 kilometers from Paul Ricard, where one can hire a car to get to the circuit. You can also use the local train service to help get to the race. You can, for example, take the train to Bandol or Saint-Cyr-les-Lex-la-Cadière from Marseille, journey of less than 1 hour, which leaves you with a manageable taxi ride to the circuit. After major traffic problems in 2018 when Circuit Paul Ricard returned to the F1 calendar, the biggest new initiative for 2019 was a park and ride facility in nearby La Ciotat with capacity for 4,000 cars and free onward buses to the circuit. A paid bus service also connects Paul Ricard each day with the larger regional centers of Nice, Toulon, Marseille and Aix-en-Provence. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel.